All right, thank you. Thank you much. This is the Board Executive Committee meeting of the East Bay Regional Park District on Friday, May 13, 2022. We're getting started at 12:33, and I'll ask Monique to take the committee roll call.
This is Monique Salas, recording secretary, taking roll. President Coffey.
Present.
Director Rosario.
Here.
Director Lane.
Here.
Park District staff participating in this meeting include General Manager Sabrina Landreth, Deputy General Manager Dr. Ana Alvarez, and Chief Robert Kennedy. Today's meeting is held pursuant to the Brown Act as amended by AB 361. Board members and staff may participate via phone, video conferencing, and/or through a hybrid of in-person and remote attendance. We are providing live audio and video streaming. Members of the public wishing to make a public comment can do so via 1, live via Zoom, 2, by submitting an email, or 3, leaving a voicemail. This information is noted on the agenda. If there are no questions about the meeting procedures, we will begin.
Okay, thank you very much. We only have one item on the agenda other than comments, and that is solid waste management update. Robert Kennedy, and I wanted to thank you for a copy of your slides in advance so we can get a feel for your presentation. That's very helpful.
You're welcome.
So go ahead.
Okay, I will share my screen.
Great. Got it?
Yes. And I believe Dr. Alvarez wanted to tee this up.
Yes. Thank you, Robert. Director Coffey, Director Rosario, and General Manager Landreth, and Director Lane. Deputy General Manager, Dr. Ana Alvarez, and I wanted to give a brief introduction and in terms of, in advance of understanding the information that's coming before you. I wanted to share with the Executive Committee that this item is being brought to you at the request of the Executive Committee last year as we were doing and working through the many different endeavors towards building resiliency towards a changing climate. So the work that's being done here by the Operations Division, it's very much rooted in the policy framework that was adopted by the board at large of protecting natural and cultural resources in a changing climate. The one thing that, other than building resiliency through the lands and enhancing those ecological resources to serve as those ecological systems to serve as mitigation and adaptation to a changing climate. The one thing that we really can do that will have a great impact in general is how we manage our waste. And that has been a key area of focus by the board and individual board members. And that's why this item is being brought to you, to the Executive Committee, rather than being heard at the Operations Committee. And I just wanted to give that background and also to give a little bit of encouragement and celebrate the work of Robert Kennedy, who's been with the Park District for a relatively short period of time, but his impacts are already being felt 3 times fold. So thank you, Robert, for your good work. And with that, I'll turn it over to him.
All right, well, thank you so much. Good afternoon, Board Executive Committee members, Chair Coffey, directors, GM Landreth and DGM Dr. Alvarez. I'm Robert Kennedy, Chief of Mass. And the ethos of sustainability runs through everything we do at this agency. And it's largely executed by the boots on the ground in our division. And back in April of 2018, there was a resolution passed by the Board of Directors that provided policy direction and a framework to lower greenhouse gas emissions through environmentally sustainable operations, which is manifested by our division. I'm here to discuss our successes, our challenges, and new developments and next steps as we take on Senate Bill 1383 and its requirements. Senate Bill 1383 requires a 50% reduction of organic waste disposal from 2014 levels by 2020, which has come and gone already, and a 75% organic waste reduction disposal by 2025. And this will require a diversion of 27 million tons of organic waste by 2025 to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And as you know, green is the new gold. And so we have expanded our composting services to all of our parks as a result of the 22 budget funding provided. And most recently, Coal Canyon, Black Diamond Mines, Roberts, Round Valley, Vasco Caves, Brushy Peak, Morgan Territory, Las Trampas, MLK Shoreline, and Temescal have all been added and provided with green waste. We do have 2 locations that do not have green waste services because of their remote locations, and that's Del Val and Sunol. And what our employees have to do is actually collect that green waste in the toters and haul them to locations that do have services. So we are going to be taking a look at that, and I'll get into a little bit more detail later on in the presentation on how we can get around that. So our successes. We have deployed 3 stream waste bins in these Bear Saver cans throughout the park. And during our pilot, we deployed 67 different cans at 20 different park locations. We have also are looking at deploying compostable bags in the green waste section of these Bear Savers as a pilot to determine their viability and efficacy. Because as you know, the green waste bags tend to biodegrade, and we want to see how long they'll last inside the bin and if it's even practical for our staff to be able to use them. We're also looking at next steps in the configuration of these cans that have a variety of varying needs for our parks, because as you know, park users enjoy our parks to their fullest, and some have a high flow of traffic and some have a lower flow of traffic. And so we want to be able to make sure that the trash receptacles that we're deploying fit the needs of not only our park users, but make it easier for our staff to be able to service those cans. So they do have Bear Savers that have the ability to receive toters like you would see at your home and residential properties where it has wheels, and that will eliminate the need for bags. So we're looking into that right now, and there's more to come, but right now, we're going to start rolling out these Bear Savers to the majority of our parks.
Well, so I have a question about Bear Savers.
Yes.
I would assume that Bear Savers are very sturdy indeed, because they are supposed to defend against bear activity, of which we have none. Mm-hmm. So are we using these because they're inexpensive or readily available, or why are we going to the extent of a Bear Saver?
Yeah, so I can answer that question. So I previously worked in the city of Oakland, and we've got a wide-ranging variety of intruders to our refuse. Not only are seagulls intruders, if you have loose lids, raccoons can get into them. And then we also have patrons who are looking to remove recycling. And so if we have a unit that is not only sturdy, but is also lockable, it prevents a lot of that intrusion from happening, and we can keep the waste where it needs to be. And not being strewn around in our parks. And I think Director Rosario had a question.
Yeah, not a question, but a comment for Bev. I mean, I introduced those cans at Redwood because the plastic cans that we had with the plastic lids, the raccoons found their way inside those cans, and we were spending so much time just picking up litter everywhere that I was able to try those out at Redwood as a pilot, and they were incredibly successful, and it got adopted by the rest of the park district eventually. But they're from my point of view as a park supervisor and my park ranger at the time, it was a labor-saving device, and well worth the expense.
Thank you for that. And it also gives us a unified look. So one park wouldn't have a different type of can than another type of park based on availability. And so we want to have consistency throughout the district and have a standard that we're using so that when people come to East Bay Regional Parks, they know what to expect. They know our standards, and it's a uniform representation. If you don't have
Okay.
any,
Thank you. That's very helpful.
no problem. And so some of you may have seen the latest announcement in the sanitation and recycling group with the promotion of Spencer Harmon, our new sanitation and recycling coordinator position that was awarded during the 22 budget process. Thank you. He comes ready and able to assist in our operation. But this will also give his counterpart, Andrew Green, the time to focus primarily on waste reduction planning and management. And one of the hopes is for us to be able to focus on contract consolidation and contract negotiation. And this is something that Andrew was able to do at Tilden Park with a cost savings of $19,000 per year, just by negotiating the hauler contract. And so we want to look at all of our contracts throughout the district and the level of service that we're being provided, so that we can really dial in what we're doing and get the most out of our money, because the waste that we are consuming and producing at our parks is a big hit to the budget. I wanted to make sure that all of our haulers are being held accountable, because we have anywhere from 10 to 12 different haulers over the 2 counties. And then as we really get this program to a point where we're collecting data at our 65 plus parks, we will be able to make educated, informed decisions on the level of service and holding those haulers accountable. And a part of what Mr. Green is going to be able to focus on is not only contract negotiations, but the feasibility. You know, we want to look at if our model is the best. And so there are options out there to have a blanket kind of contract where we have one hauler that the district works with, and then they work with all of the smaller haulers and getting us the services that we need throughout the district. So there's one point of contact, and we know what to expect, and we can hold them to account. This will also help us as far as the budget. So this feasibility study that we're going to have Andrew go into is going to help us with right-sizing dumpsters, breaking the district down into 4 different quadrants so that we have zones within the district if that's needed, and understand, you know, what it is that we need to be provided when it comes to our haulers. We also want to deploy an RFP for consulting services, because we need to train our staff in the development of our new protocols related to SB 1383. We want to have tracking software so that we can get accurate information on the levels of refuse that we're diverting from the landfill, and have documented materials so that we can start campaigns to inform the community on how they can help us accomplish our goals within the district. And I talked about data for a second, and you know, reporting out on our diversion rate is mandated by SB 1383 and meeting the needs of both Alameda and Contra Costa County. And so we want to do that with a high level of specificity and give them accurate data and information so that they know that we're in compliance and we're meeting, we're going above and beyond the standards that are presented to us. I also want to be able to have a 3-stream rollout. So we want to talk about how many of these bear savers we can roll out and install each year and have a plan of action. We would look to do 100 bear saver cans annually. And then we can work with on-site staff or utilize a contractor to do this installation. It just depends on the technical needs for each location. We have 2 to 3 different types of installation, and that would be based on, you know, the unit manager and the park supervisor's needs for a park, and working with them on their workloads to ensure that we can have a proper rollout of these bear saver cans. In addition, one last thing we want to do is also do some outreach to our neighboring districts. So we want to consult with Sonoma County Regional Parks, Marin County Parks, and Mid-Penn Regional Open Space, and see what they're doing and what their plans are. We always want to be on the forefront of environmental conservation and utilizing our resources to the best of our ability, but it's also good to understand what our regional partners are doing. And so that's a very robust plan. And now that we have the additional FTE, we'll be able to separate the areas of responsibility and have a greater focus on our delivery. Some of our challenges, like I was alluding to earlier, is we need to understand and be data driven. For example, we postulate that we're making that 75% diversion by 2025, but we actually need accurate metrics and measurements to be able to guarantee that we are meeting those needs. And so that's one of our challenges, is having the right software and technology to collect this data and information to be able to properly inform our regulators that we are meeting the letter of the law. Another challenge that we're meeting is just training of staff. You know, we've got 3 stream waste bins in our facilities, and they need to know how to use them and what their roles and responsibilities are going to be as employees of the district and what we're looking for. And also, you know, again, notifying the public and starting a campaign on how our different user groups, our visitors and constituents can be aware of what their responsibilities are in helping us to keep the natural resources pristine for years to come. And so by working with public affairs and different visitor groups, we'll be able to hopefully get some momentum and really inform our surrounding communities on how they can help assist us with meeting our challenges. And so I talked about data. And so for the last 3 months, we ran a pilot here at Peralta Oaks with Compology. It started on November 1st of 2021 and it ended on March 7th of 2022. And we have cameras that are literally taking pictures every hour of the refuse being collected at our locations. And so this is allowing us to not only see visually what's happening inside of our dumpsters, but see if there's any contamination happening as well. It lets us know if there are missed pickups. You know, we can right size our dumpsters and then if there's any contamination in there. And so one thing that we've been noticing so far is that our recycling at Peralta Oaks is so high that it overruns our bin. And a lot of that recycling is actually being pushed into the refuse. So one of the recommendations was actually to increase the number of pickups for our recycling so that we can prevent any of that potentially recyclable material from going into the landfill. And so, you know, we would have never have known that had we not had these cameras installed. And then it also lets us know if pickups have been missed, which is a good one because it's happened a couple of times. I have another slide that's going to get into a little bit more detail, but just at the beginning stages of rolling out this pilot is, you know, set up a lot of red flags to me. And now that we have an individual who can monitor this more closely, we'll really be able to dial in the services that were being provided. And then also the flip side to that is that we can reduce the number of trips in some instances. And some instances will have to increase the number of trips, but CO2 emissions as it relates to our recycling services can be dialed in so that we are really on point with reducing those emissions while conducting our work. So I don't want to get into this too much because there's a lot of information here, but these are the dashboards that we can take a look at. And so it's going to allow us to see the volumes on pickup dates and the fullness levels, and then the average number of pickups that we need. And so we can look at the mixed recycling is a 1 time per week, and it can actually go to 2 times per week because the average fullness level is at 94%. And so again, we don't want to have any of those potential recycled materials going into the refuse bin because of the lack of pickups. On the flip side, compost is being picked up once a week, and it can be moved to every other week because the average level of fullness is actually 33%. But these numbers might be skewed a little bit because we're not at full capacity at Peralta Oaks. And so I didn't want to make any adjustments until, you know, we've got a full roar of the employees in our facilities, and we actually see what the volume is going to be like. But if it were to stay like this, I would switch our pickup schedule to every other week, because on average, we're only at 33% of fullness for compost, then we're picking up too often. And then the same thing with refuse. That can also be moved to every other week, because the average level of fullness is at 67%. And so we also deployed these dumpsters to Crab Cove and Point Pinole. So we got an experience of what it's like in our parks. And the average level of fullness for our containers at Crab Cove was 57% on fullness. And again, we're probably going to see a difference once the season kind of picks up and the weather changes and people are in our parks a little bit more. But we're actually starting to pick up kind of data that allow us to look at trends as we get further and further into the deployment of these this type of technology. Sorry, reading the slide number. So like I mentioned earlier in the presentation, the top left corner is another version of the Bear Saver can that can actually accommodate a toter. And so the cool thing about that is it's less labor intensive for our staff. There's no need to put a liner in there. It will allow our staff to do the job in a more efficient and safe manner. And then if you look at the bottom of the screen, there's a slide in that we can get for our pickup trucks that will actually pick up the can and put it into the back of a vehicle. So it reduces the impact and the work that our staff have to do out in the field, and it makes it less cumbersome. And so we want to reduce injuries. We want our staff to be around for a long time because they enjoy the work that they do, and we want to make it easier for them to be able to do that job. And then it'll also eliminate the need for plastic bags. So as we collect more data, we understand what technology and resources are available to us, we'll start to roll out these other options. And this will be in like our high use parks. Crown Beach is a big culprit. When the weather is good and the sun is shining, people are out at the park using our facilities, and we want to be able to effectively remove the refuse that's generated, but then provide them with the resources to be able to dispose of them in the appropriate manner. And this brings us to our last slide. So for our next steps, we are going to be charged with having annual staff training. So this will be something that will be loaded up into Summit, so that new employees that come in will go through the orientation process and understand what their roles and responsibilities are when it comes to our 3-stream requirements. And then annually for all of our employees, they'll get a quick refresher on what they need to do to help us be in compliance. Renegotiating our contracts so that we are getting the most bang for our buck here in the district and utilizing those resources to the fullest. And also considering opportunities to work with different business services with our concessionaires and making sure that they're on par with our waste management plans, and they have language within their contracts to reduce and eliminate non-recyclable materials. Again, expanding our collection at all of our facilities, adding additional 3-stream locations for Sunol and Del Val. So we really want to figure out why it is we can't get services there and what our options are. And we want to quantify our waste generation. So we want to roll out the use of these compology cameras in all of our front-loading dumpsters throughout the district, so that we can quantify and collect that data, look at trends, and make sure that we're right-sizing our dumpsters so that we can be in compliance and get a really good understanding of what's happening in our parks. And then just meeting the state recommended 75% diversion goals. So these are pretty lofty goals that are in front of us, but with the addition of the sanitation and recycling coordinator, I'm confident that Andrew Green will be able to take on this challenge and deliver for us. And just so you know, I actually had a meeting with a representative from Stop Waste. And so we're in the very infancy stages on how we can work with Stop Waste, but they have stepped forward to say that they can help us with some of this staff training. They're really interested in providing our outreach and notifications, so they can help us with getting the word out to all of our public agencies that we work with and cities that we work in and around, and how we can deal with our green waste. Because as you know, we're going to be felling a lot of trees in the next coming years. And so what to do with all of that green waste is going to be a priority for us. So they're going to lend their expertise to us and give us some really good insights on the potential for the district and where we can go and how we can deal with that. But we're in the infancy stages, so that's just getting started. And with that, that is the end of my presentation. I will stop sharing and take questions.
Thank you, Robert. Let's go to our board members. Director Rosario.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Wow, this is very very thorough, and it's like this could be a class.
Let's go.
Very good. I mean, this is incredible work, and I'm really happy to see that you're definitely thinking outside the box, and having the technology, utilizing the technology to determine how we're doing is just amazing to me. I know on a personal level, you know, just from my own personal use, my family and I, is like, you know, we've downsized from a 30-gallon can to like the little 5-gallon one. And we've been able to divert almost everything into our compost. And so I see that as this study and on our efforts we could probably save money in eventually cutting down our actual refuse bills and having to get rid of that and returning everything else into recycling and compost, which is fascinating.
Yeah, this is something that, you know, having been with the district for a year now, I noticed that when it comes to the end of the year, you know, our trash bill happens to be very, very high. And so anything that we can do to kind of alleviate those pressures is going to be good for the district. And then, you know, with our green waste generation comes a byproduct. And so what can we do with that byproduct? And how can we be on the forefront of being an example for surrounding public agencies on how to utilize those resources the most effective and efficient ways?
Yeah, I especially like the bins with the plastic containers inside.
Mm-hmm.
That looks like a very promising mode of operation there. Yeah. And then I think if I recall, Lake Devalier, they have their own garbage truck. And
right.
I think we approved a garbage truck for Dumbarton Quarry as well. So are they still collecting their own garbage?
They are. So they're hauling it to different locations where we do have services. And so is that an efficient and effective use of our staff time? And that's something that we want to do with the feasibility study. So should we get in the business of hauling our own garbage, or is it more effective to have haulers on contract? And so that's something that we want to take a look at, because if we already have the trucks and we're setting up those facilities, what would that level of investment be? But again, this is just the very infancy stages of that, and just wanting to recognize, you know, what are our options.
Yeah, and then the other follow-up question to that would be, I mean, are we expecting them to separate out compostables and recyclables from that garbage before it gets hauled?
Well, we want to have 3-stream.
Yeah.
And so we do have the 3-stream. The expectation wouldn't be that our staff are handling, you know, pulling that stuff out. So again, when we do roll out 3-stream out of all of our park locations, the expectation is that we do have refuse, recycling, and compost And should there be any contamination in there, again, we're starting to train staff on how we can better utilize that three-stream methodology to reduce the likelihood of that contamination. So as we look at the data coming from each of the parks, we can use that as a tool to educate our staff on how to improve their numbers and reduce the potential for contamination.
Cool. Yeah, and then just a suggestion is, I mean, when I was a park supervisor at Redwood, we had for the cruise there, we had worm bins for all of our compostables. So those should be considered as well, especially in those outlying areas. And we use the soil in our nursery for our restoration projects. So, but
Nice.
Otherwise, a great program. Looking forward to seeing the progress.
Oh yeah, we'll continue to bring updates.
Yeah,
Not only to BOC, but wherever I'm invited to speak.
yeah, I think you'll have a lot. But I appreciate the data and the thoroughness of the project. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Director Lane?
Yeah, well, I'm happy to learn a new word, compology.
Yes.
We haven't seen that around. I really appreciate the presentation and what you seem to be, well, the goals are good and the way to document it, I think, is really important. So one thing I would hope that we'll think about doing is putting together some kind of a communication device or a report which will help other jurisdictions in the East Bay as they grapple with this same challenge and expectations. Because if we are, I of course like to see us as a leader, and if we are having some successes that are important in the district, if we can share those and save staff time for some of the cities where they're coping, I think that would be a really good service on behalf of the Park District with other jurisdictions.
That was a great idea.
Especially since you are documenting things so well right now. And then I would suggest that Dennis Waspy would be particularly interested in this. And so you might send him the PowerPoint and see if he has some comments for you as well. I mean, he's always interested in this. And thank you for the bear saver information. It's really raccoon saver, isn't it?
Yeah, we're not that high up yet to deal with bears, but raccoons can be just as pervasive and cause a lot of problems. So
yeah, I totally believe that. And then I really like that mini dump for the trucks, because I think one of the things that happens is we really need to help staff protect their backs. And as staff gets older, they need to think about back protection as much as possible. So something like this that looks like it's a relatively simple device that doesn't need a lot of people to operate, I just think is a really impressive part of the program. Then I have a question about concessionaires. And I think it's really important for concessionaires to operate as if they were our staff. So we have certain standards for the staff, and the concessionaires ought to be meeting those standards as well. So two things. One, is there, are we communicating or possibly providing some of this equipment for our concessionaires so that they also can be an example of doing this well?
So there's language in the contracts, and Tiffany Margolese can better speak to this, but there's language that I believe has been adopted that goes into their contracts that tells them that they need to be a part of this three-stream process, and all the facilities that they operate out of have three-stream services. And so it'll be upon us to to make sure that they're following those requirements and recommendations. But the language is there. And then when you say the equipment, are you referring to the trucks to be able to haul that material, or?
No, I'm really talking about the well, the bear savers.
Yes, they will be at the locations that they're operating out of. So they will be able to separate the waste that is generated at those locations.
Okay, and you know, at the operations ward breakfast, I always appreciate the fact that there's an award for the park eye, and you know how the parks look, and I appreciate the goal of having a standard with these bear savers, so that we get the same look in our parks. Then I had a conversation with Jim O'Brien after the breakfast that I don't think he really was happy about, and that was our new Brickyard Park and the way it is set and looking wonderful, you know, on East Shore. And then if you go a short distance away, we have the major sign for East Shore there at the corner of University. And in between is a sea breeze. So evidently they painted the building, which is really good. But I did go and have lunch there the other day, and I took a look around after walking through the new park and sitting there on the corner watching people have near accidents, which is, you know, a good, you know, amusement if you like that kind of thing. But Seabreeze just looks so unbelievably tacky. And one of the things that I thought really looked bad was their trash receptacles. And I know we can own, you know, we don't own it. It's a concessionaire and they've been there forever. And yes, phase 2 will be phase 2. But I would hope that somebody would take a look at the way they're taking trash and recycling. Because I mean, I couldn't find a place to recycle my pop readily. And when I looked around, it looked pretty ugly. So I appreciate if people will have that eye in mind with our concessionaires, because they often are up front and center in different locations. And I'm sure most of them do really well, but Seabreeze someone could take a look there just at how our waste disposal is being looked at.
Yes, I will work with Tiffany Margolese. She's a business services manager. And then we'll have that conversation on what the expectations are. And then again, see what our potential options are to help out, if at all possible.
Yeah, you know, I really don't want to add work for our staff, but when things look that bad, I think the public would be well served by, again, seeing what the park standard would be.
Duly noted.
Okay, thank you very much. This is very interesting, and I feel very optimistic about our being able to meet what we should be meeting and our role as a standard maker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, it's a frequent phenomena that when we upgrade a piece of parkland or a trail, and I'm thinking of Rodeo recently, we upgraded the parking staging area in Rodeo. It, over time, tends to uplift the surrounding community. So in Rodeo, we greatly enhanced the staging area, and it looks really nice and well maintained. And there's a petition circulating in the community of Rodeo to urge the county to improve San Pablo Avenue next to our staging area because much of it is, there's a shoulder that isn't paved. And frankly, it just gets down to the point that you have this nice land that we upgraded, and the land that the county maintains adjacent to it looks a little shabby. And so the community wants it upgraded, and the county's working on it. So it's a good thing, that kind of impact that we have. I have, where's my notes? A couple of questions. I'm interested in the reference to negotiating with haulers. Does that mean we are in a position where we can negotiate with haulers at any given park, or are we subject to exclusive contracting for solid waste that the cities have? So, you know, Oakland has an exclusive, I think, with Waste Management. I think Richmond has an exclusive with Republic. So I was wondering if our parks in those areas are subject to the exclusivity that the cities give the haulers, and they're negotiated, or do we get to negotiate on our own?
Yeah, so I don't know the details of how different public agencies have negotiated those contracts, but when we do this feasibility study, that's something that I really want to look into, because you know, Republic and Waste Management are the two big haulers in the Bay Area, and they call it a national contract design. And so we've got 10 to 12 different haulers in the district. And so we want to be able to see if we can work with one hauler. And so we would try to get into a contract similar to those public agencies, either with Republic or Waste Management, or if there's another hauler that can handle the volume. And so that's something that we're going to be looking into. And so I don't have that answer offhand if we're able to be in that type of a contract, but that's something that we want to look into.
Okay, that's fair. I was just curious. The recycling group that you referred to, how many people are in that group?
Oh, so right now, I'm glad that you asked that. We've got 7 total employees, the majority of which are on the sanitation side. And so now we've got 1 dedicated employee that can actually focus on our recycling and sustainable operations. And so that would be Andrew Green, which is the second half of our 2 sanitation and recycling coordinators. And so, you know, he's not boots on the ground removing all of the recycling, but he's helping with the contracts, working with Compology to be able to deploy the data and the cameras, and then working on the educational pieces, components for staff and the community, and doing outreach or working with public affairs. And so I envision this growing, but again, we need to collect the data first so that we can make these informed decisions. So what is the need and what is the volume of work that our recycling group is going to have to take on? And so, for example, you know, we have our different trucks at Del Val and Sunol, right? So is that an option for us to have an in-house recycling team? And if so, what does that look like? And so part of that feasibility study is to look at our operation and how we do things and what the potential would be to expand.
So you're suggesting that there's a 7-person group in sanitation, and there are 2 of those 7 are dedicated toward recycling?
One employee,
Andrew.
yeah. Before that, we had 1 sanitation and recycling coordinator, which was Andrew Green. So 50% of his time was working on sanitation compliance, and the other 50% was working on the recycling component. And now, since we have the 2 sanitation and recycling coordinators, Andrew is going to be focused primarily on the recycling side of it. So we're going to be.
I've attended various events over time, and occasionally I think I've been running into Andrew as he's coordinating recycling at the event.
Yes.
Yeah, so I know Andrew.
Yes, and so he's been. I'm unleashing one of our best assets when it comes to our recycling and sustainability efforts. And so he is highly intelligent, highly motivated. And so now we're going to take the reins off and let him get to work primarily on this effort. And then we're going to continue to develop this plan and bring recommendations not only to our board of operations, but to the full board. And again, wherever I need to give a presentation.
I just always been impressed by the fact that where we have significant events, there would be a member of staff there who was focused just on recycling at the event. And I thought that was really cool. And I've been impressed by that. So I'm glad to hear he has even larger scope in that realm now. That's great. Lastly, park composting. When you refer to bringing park composting to most of the parks, are you talking about the composting bins being in those parks, or is there also a facet of this that staff has their own composting process among them as opposed to among park users?
So right now we're deploying 3 streams. So green waste was a part of that. So we didn't actually have green waste at every single park in the district. And so that was a component that we expanded to. And then as we continue to work with stop waste to get new ideas and see what our options are, the generation of compost is something that we really have to get realistic about, because we're going to be felling a lot of trees because of the die-off. And then what are we going to do with those trees and that volume of material that is generated? And so we're in the very infancy stages and having those discussions on what it looks like to generate and create compost at the East Bay Regional Park Districts. Where is the facility? How large is it? What is the volume? And what components will be going into it? So the 3 stream that we have at our park facilities that are generated from our park users, that's going to be separate from the actual green waste and the compost generation that comes from cutting our grass, using shears to prune and take care of our shrubbery when we're pruning trees, all of the green waste that's generated from staff work out in the field, clearing trails, roadways. That's the stuff that we're talking about, because we can guarantee a clean fill in our dumpster versus we don't know what we're going to get from park patrons. Because, if one canister is full, they're going to put their refuse in another one. So we want to keep that away from our green stream, so to speak.
Okay, that makes sense. That's what we do at home. We have one large composting bin, but we put our cuttings in the same bin with what comes from our kitchen compost.
Mm-hmm.
But you're suggesting it's going to be a separate process.
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's what I was interested in. Well, thank you. That does it for my questions. And I guess the board, I'd ask Monique if we have any public comment on this item, request for public comment.
President Coffey, we have not received any written comments on this item, but I see there's a couple of.
I assumed
attendees.
Kelly would raise his hand, so I just thought before that. No one else?
Is there anyone wishing to make a public comment at this time? Please identify yourself. I know there's an iPhone connected as well.
Okay, well, then we'll go to Kelly. Kelly, go ahead. I think you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. The at Mission Peak, disposable plastic bottles comprise a large portion of the trash flow. And why don't we think about outlawing disposable plastic bottles and then putting up signs to give people a quantitative recommendation, not just carry enough water, which is what a sign that would be written by lawyers. Just tell them exactly how many liters of water to carry. It might save a few, it's not very legalistic, but it is more kind and more humane. Doggy poop bags that we use, that I see around here are, and sometimes I do walk dogs and they do drop poop and I put them in the bags, but they're black. And when you walk around parks, you see these black bags randomly scattered. They're hard to spot. One of my best ideas I've ever had is white bags or maybe fluorescent orange bags. So we can spot the doggy poop in the grass and the bushes. and not have to go hunt down these little black ones. There was one of the facilities that nobody knows about is the regional park. The East Bay EBRPD runs parks near Alameda Creek in Fremont. And there's some dumping there next to the road. And it turns out, I did a little research, 20 different agents, there's several different agencies are share responsibility for that canyon. It took me a week to get a response. It turned out that it was the SFPUC is responsible for that particular piece of dumping, or at least they may own the land. They're going to get out there, they're going to clean it. And I had to actually write to John Cote, Communications Director and Press Secretary for the District Attorney, District Attorney's Office, City and County of San Francisco. And somehow the next day I got a reply from them. And then going back to Mission Peak again, littering. Littering is weaponized at Mission Peak. Local residents are always asking for more police to, criminalize the littering, as opposed to, we don't really need more police. I don't believe criminalizing trash is the right way to do it. I think we need more trash collectors. And likewise, well, now I'm into public comment because this has nothing to do with garbage. But there's an item for public comment next.
Kelly, you have 30 seconds.
Okay, fine. I'll wait for public comment.
I'll be right back at you, Kelly.
Okay, thank you. So parking, this has to do with parking at Morrison Canyon Road, which is a remote country road near Vargas Plateau Regional Park. And it's also got an adjacent subdivision full of suburban houses. So the city police department, again, is weaponizing public safety. It's using public safety as a pretense to force people to park. There are 5 parking spaces on the side of the road on the shoulder. They've decided that's somehow a public safety issue, which it's not. And they're going to be putting up no parking signs and forcing people to park out in front of other people's houses. And those people are going to get mad, and they're going to blame the motorists and the drivers and the park visitors. And they're not going to realize that, eventually the no parking signs are going to be normalized, and everyone's going to think that parking on that road is somehow bad. It's not, especially at that spot. Traffic safety shouldn't be used as a charade to make things harder for park visitors, especially when there's parking and the city owns it and the city can use it. As of this morning, there was a city police employee out there telling people that they were going to be putting up no parking signs, and they're going to be handing out warning tickets, and later they're going to be handing out real parking tickets. This is, the kind of political stuff that happens all the time, and I'm very, very attuned to it. I know how the politics of Fremont works, and I know the charade of public safety. Thanks.
All right, Kelly, I take it that was your public comment on items not on the agenda. And so we gave you 6 minutes, so that worked. Now, I want to go back to the board on solid waste management to see if there was any additional questions or comments for Robert. No, see none. All right. Then I'll ask for on item 3, and thank you, Robert, by the way. It's a very well done presentation. And you made solid waste really interesting. That's
my goal. Thank you.
That is an accomplishment. Item 3, public comment not on the agenda. We had Kelly do his. Are there any other requests, Monique? Or any hands up?
Not at this time.
All right. Then we will go to committee member comments. Director Rosario, any comments?
I just think this was a great presentation, and I think we're definitely headed in the right direction. But I just have a question for another meeting. For a future meeting, is that we had requested an analysis of the paving and utilizing roads and trails, I believe, in a board meeting maybe a couple months ago. And I was wondering which committee that study was going to be, or analysis was going to be presented. So I can take that offline too. But
Sure, I can follow up on that with you, Director Rosario. I know staff has been working on it. I think we were assuming it was going to go to the Operations Committee, but I can certainly check with them on both the status and then their suggestion on where they think it should go. But ultimately, it's up to the board on where you want it to
Okay,
land. Yeah.
thank you.
Bev, I'll go to you, but I want to follow up on what Dee just mentioned. Also, we had provided a list. I went to Bev and to Dee because there was a suggestion we may have been okay with just skipping exec committee last month. And it turned out that staff did have a couple of issues that were important to address at the exec level last month. So we had that meeting, but in the process, I asked Dee and Bev for topics that they thought would be appropriate for the executive committee to hear. So we've provided that list, and you might want to look at it. Sabrina, you were out at the time, and I could share it with you. I think Anna has it. In any event, there were a number of issues that we thought were pressing and the executive committee would like to discuss. And my guess is they simply weren't right. And we had room for another meaty topic today, I think. So I just want to reorient management toward that list that this board, the membership of this committee came up with. And Director Lane has since suggested another one having to do with, and I asked actually, excuse me, Eric Feeler to consider what would be the best vehicle for it, but it has to do with both success and failings when it comes to grant awards or funding requests that we get that are turned down, funding requests that are awarded. And with me, it's been an issue that I've been discussing with Eric pretty much since the beginning of the year, a concern that we may not have enough DC-based or Sacramento-based advocacy. We have very good advocates, but I'm wondering, and I've raised this with Eric, whether there are specialists in administrative advocacy as opposed to legislative. Same thing for DC. So I'd like to get a feel for, whether we have enough resources to address what is frankly unprecedented infrastructure and related funding out there that the Park District is eligible for, and making sure that we know of all of them and et cetera. So there's a whole panoply of issues around there, and it's a really big deal right now. So I want to add that to the list, and it was suggested originally by Director Lane to me a week or so ago. And again, there's another list floating around of items that we think this committee could work on. So I'll stop there and ask Bev if she has any closing comments. You're on mute. There you go.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing up the list as usual. I do feel that the executive committee can be employed and in a better way than we have in the past. Sometimes there is that wait until something has come to fruition, but there's also a point as when we are dealing with different subjects that I think it'd be very helpful for the board members to weigh in on. I've talked with you, Sabrina, about how you're balancing all the one-on-ones, and here at least there's three of us, and so I think you should use us as an executive committee. And then the issue of the grants, I think that as we have new AGMs and a new GM and many new people in the park district, it would be helpful for me to have an understanding of how we go about finding out about grants that could be very helpful for the park district and how that process of decision making happens. Eric in particular could be helpful on this because he was so involved in some of these propositions and some of the federal legislation that's evolved. We could make use of Peter more on that as well, so that we don't miss any opportunities which we may have pressed ourselves to make sure we were eligible. So, that whole process, I think, is an interesting one, and it can always be done more productively.
All right, thank you. Thank you. And I'm told I have an East Bay Park District truck car in my driveway. So I guess maybe I'm getting something delivered in person. That's very nice. Anyway.
Well, we have a couple things coming up on Monday and Tuesday, so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's usually FedEx though. So I appreciate that added effort.
Hot off the presses.
Item 5, General Manager's comments. So Sabrina, if you'd like to generally comment or respond to what we've been saying, that would be great.
Yeah, no, that's great. And as you know, I was out for a little bit of time, so I will follow up with Dr. Alvarez on that list. And certainly, I think coming and bringing some more substantive work around the grant process and maybe, where we think we need some supplemental help, I think is a great suggestion, and we can get that on the calendar alongside other items that you all have. So absolutely, I agree. We shouldn't. There's so much work to do that there's no reason for us to ever cancel one of these meetings. So I'm right there with you. So just that's my response on that. And then I do want to just echo what you all said about Robert's presentation. Fabulous work that he's been doing since he walked in the door here, using data to drive some of our decision making. And I do agree with Kelly on the fact that you cannot enforce people. You can't have enough enforcement on this, that it really has to be about voluntary compliance. So that's part of, I know, on Robert's plate with the signage and education and training with our staff. So I just wanted to say that publicly, that you are doing a fabulous job, Robert. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
He's also a good MC at that awards breakfast. People wanted more and more of Robert. That was great.
I have to work at it.
All right, with that, we'll adjourn the meeting. I want to thank Sandra and Monique and Becky for all the effort you put into making this happen and making it happen well. Very much appreciated, along with the folks from PrimeGov. So with that, have a nice afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.